You know, when you think about war, your mind probably jumps straight to the Hollywood version, right? It's always this huge story of good versus evil, a big clash of ideas, a fight for freedom. It's this epic, emotional story we all know so well. But the source material we're looking at today, it tells a very, very different story.
And that's where this whole thing just flips on its head. The argument here is that behind all the flags, all the speeches, there's just a cold, hard spreadsheet. So this explainer is going to unpack that claim, that modern war isn't driven by a script, but by some pretty brutal mathematics.
All right, so to really get this, you've got to do one thing: follow the money. The core argument is that global conflict isn't some random accident. It's actually a super optimized, multi-trillion-dollar business model that just keeps feeding itself.
Now, at the heart of this whole thing is a term you've probably heard before: the military-industrial complex. Basically, it's this tangled web connecting a country's military, the private companies building the weapons, and the government that's footing the bill for all of it. They all kind of act as one big, interconnected system.
The source calls this system, and honestly, it's kind of a wild way to put it, an infinite money glitch. And it all starts with you, the taxpayer. See, your money funds the government. Then the government turns around and hands out massive contracts to defense companies. Those companies build the weapons, and then they use some of that money to lobby the government to get even bigger budgets for next year. It's a perfect, self-sustaining circle.
Okay, but here's the catch. Here's the real kicker from the source's perspective. This whole business model has one big problem. If you build, say, 10,000 missiles and the world is totally at peace, those missiles just sit in a warehouse collecting dust. So from a purely business standpoint, conflict becomes, well, necessary. It's basically just inventory liquidation. Every time a weapon gets used, a new purchase order has to be made to replace it.
And that brings us to the actual math on the battlefield. The economics of how wars are fought today, according to this analysis, have been completely changed by this idea of asymmetrical ROI, or return on investment. It all comes down to the crazy difference in cost between modern weapons.
So let's take a big-ticket item, a state-of-the-art main battle tank. To design, build, and actually get one of these things on the field costs, on average, a cool $4 million. That is a massive investment.
Now, compare that to the weapon specifically designed to destroy it, a modern anti-tank missile, something one person can carry. That's going to run you about $100,000, a tiny fraction of the cost of its target.
And right there, you see the brutal math in action. A $100,000 investment just completely deleted a $4 million asset from the game. That's a huge financial loss for the side that owned the tank. But, and this is a huge but, the story doesn't stop there. Because here is the absolute genius of the model, according to the source. The defense contractor, they don't care who wins the battle. Not at all. Think about it. The missile was fired, so the government has to order a new missile. The tank was destroyed, so the government has to order a new tank. Both things have to be replaced. For the manufacturer, it is a guaranteed win-win.
And just when you think it's over, it's not. The profits don't stop when the guns go silent. Oh no. According to this analysis, that's just when Phase 2 kicks in, what they call the reconstruction payday. Just think about it for a second. When a war flattens a country's infrastructure, we're talking its bridges, roads, power grids, the whole shebang. What happens? A brand new massive market is created, literally out of the rubble. Everything has to be rebuilt from scratch. And this creates what the source calls a perfectly closed economic loop. It's wild. Step 1. The taxpayer pays a company to build a weapon. Step 2. The taxpayer pays for the military to go use that weapon. And step 3? You guessed it. The taxpayer pays another giant corporation to rebuild everything that weapon just destroyed. Profit gets pulled out at every single stage of the process. So at the end of the day, what this analysis is really doing is handing us a new lens to look through. It's asking us to just hit pause on all the political noise, on all the emotional scripts, and instead just look at the numbers on the spreadsheet. So if we boil this all down, here are the 3 big takeaways from this perspective. First, that global conflict works like a giant inventory clearance sale. Second, that lopsided math, that asymmetrical cost, well, it basically guarantees someone's getting a replacement order no matter what. And third, that destruction and reconstruction, they're really just 2 sides of the exact same, very profitable coin. And all of that leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question to chew on. If we follow this analysis, if we accept this idea that war functions as a highly optimized business, then you have to ask yourself, who's the real customer here?